Hi everyone, my name is Simone Steel and I'm Chief Data Officer for Nationwide. Nationwide is the largest mutual in the UK. We have 17 million members, over that number, and we connect savers and mortgage holders as our basic business, operating within the financial services industry. I'm here to talk to you about the perspective that is helping us pursue greater enterprise agility. And but first acknowledging, right, that we in this conference are standing on the shoulders of giants. There is a very vast body of knowledge that encompasses software development, the delivery of software products, encompasses a number of studies and knowledge about organization and financial management. And it does cover some of our data topics that can help or hinder enterprise agility, but it doesn't cover that in a systemic way. There is a sense of local optimization in most of our literature when it comes to data. And of course, there is a vast body of knowledge on data architecture and designs. And more technology that make it really easy to deal with large volumes of data. But that is still not covering our systemic set of behaviors towards data itself. And as a Chief Data Officer, I see data as the payload of all those software systems and all the management systems that keep our business running. So to help, what is my help and the help of our data and analytics community here at Nationwide towards that goal of enterprise agility. I'm going to cover some of our journey since we met here virtually at SEACOM last year. That was the beginning of our journey. And we started with very few steps, and those steps will help contextualize today's talk. And let me just take a minute or two to outline our approach on how data can accelerate our ways to respond to the business environment, to respond to our society's membership. So first, we began the discussion around data by looking at atomically each data element, each piece of information that either makes it for a great service for our members or potentially a bad experience. Every element of data has those two sides, the assets and the liability. That's what I called our data balance sheet last time. And liabilities are very well known, and they are usually back office concerns. They are related to regulation and related to potential failures, be that of data breach or be that of systems misbehaving because of misunderstandings and data non-conformity. And our first step here was to highlight that it's not only about liability. Data and analytics is a source of value, of great service, of great transparency, of ease of compliance with regulation. So we are building this picture over time, but that is our first step. And also bringing those liabilities and so the teams that generate value by creating new features, by improving the ways they deliver software products in agile ways, bringing them closer to the concerns of the enterprise around liabilities. So working very closely to bring data controls, data regulation, data policies into our day-to-day value delivery. Second point here is about our data connections that often the units of discussion in in an investment conversation or in a discussion of architecture, the units of discussion, they could be a business process or a data domain, but they fizzle out when the connections move over to a different domain or a different system. So how do we bring those data connections as a first-class citizen to the conversation? So how do we start to build our search engine for reliable data insights? So we're taking a few steps, and I'll cover later what they are. And finally, the culture and strategy. And I wanted to draw upon Mark Short's idea on for a seat at the table. And actually, there might be a sequel to that book with the data angle on it. Having a seat at the table is really important for the health of our data flows and our data and the trustworthiness of our data. And analytics specifically, where we want to extract more value so that our members get better service from us, it is a new paradigm. And a new paradigm needs new rules. And to have new rules, you need to have a seat at the table. So we're taking a few steps and actually working very closely with our leadership and our board members. That's the context and for data. And I think now some insights can be produced from that, from the body of knowledge we have on enterprise agility broadly, for the challenges that are in front of us, which are very unique and nationwide, but perhaps there are some patterns that you can identify with. So what are the insights that I wanted to share today? So first, having a mental model that this is overly simplistic for an organization that is, for any organization that's more than 20 years old, let alone the ones that are over 100 years old. But this is an oversimplification that can work for us. In any organization, when we are talking about optimizing for flow of value, we often optimize locally. We look at a user journey, or in our case, a member journey or a value that we deliver for a member. And then we look at the processes that are affected if we want to improve that or if you want to create more value out of that. So we put a lens of local optimization. However deep it goes into the organization, it is still for one purpose at a time. And so we have that pattern, which is pursuing a higher level of flow of value through the system. And we have still other paradigms, which are the more transformative initiatives that actually cut off a whole section of a business and technology flow and aim to replace an entire part of this ecosystem. In both cases, the more user-focused, the more transformative within the system, I begin to look at data from the point of view of effort that we put into any of those activities or all of those activities that go into pure translation. It's almost a hidden cost. Even for very advanced data disciplines, which I'm sure many of you have, even if you do have the data domain well understood, the taxonomy well understood, available and documented, it is still everybody translating to it. And more often than not, you don't have the enterprise-wide taxonomy and lingua franca, the language between them. So you ended up doing point-to-point translations, between your internal implied model in any one of those boxes that may mean to you a business process or an application or a system to the next in line. Yeah, so how do you consume and produce data could be a very bespoke conversation between components of a system. And it means that for every team that is set a goal, the choice of optimization is often local, not systemic. That's how we measure, that's how we get investment. Even for persistently funded teams, that's how the decisions are made, still very local. And when we have alliances between parts of this diagram, the alliances obviously cannot bring the entire company together at one particular point in time. And the danger of those translations, clearly from a data lens, is, well, first, they may, systemically, they are non-value-added activities, and they can adulterate the payload. They can imply meaning to the data that it should not have, and it could distort for convenience of the internal data model, and that is a risk. Secondly, some older systems are not as robust. They have not been tried and tested by the chaos monkey or the simian armada, whatever the next incarnation is. So systemically, the resilience of our processes are relying upon a number of checks in the around the boundaries of each component, each process. So again, value-added activity from the point of view of health of your business, but quite often it is based on after the fact checks, after the journey was delivered to the user or after certain parts of the systems failed, and then those checks in the boundaries would be introduced. Again, ways of checking timeliness, accuracy of data, and completeness are still often an afterthought. And thirdly, when those checks are in no way automated, we have a data checkpoint that may look to your organization as a regular monthly or annual attestation of from your data owner in the business that things are running well, as in the data that the systems that support those functions carry is still integral and controlled, either preventative or as a compensating control. And usually these are handshakes between not so well defined or actually very malleable boundaries between processes. So those handshakes may move around the system quite a lot. And they are susceptible to organization changes more than the actual electronic systems. So this is also data, right? If it may be end user computing, which it could maybe kind of plague most of our enterprise agility efforts, and they may not be as covered by the literature when it comes to our DevOps practices or our ways of working around flow of value. My insight here nationwide from a data lens is that I can bring to the table a more systemic view of optimization. So I would like to move data from the weakest link or the Achilles heel of some of our agility efforts. Still engineering data for a robust systemic view like this is quite hard. Engineering data for us to move away from having to rely upon live data for the ultimate test is very hard. So there's a lot that data can contribute to this enterprise agility agenda. And how we do that is by adding telemetry, by actually being inside those arrows that you can see transporting data between systems. So it's measure everything, get the telemetry that we already have, analyze it, use it. There are many solutions out there that can surface those connections, either via machine learning or more old-fashioned ways of gathering data. And that is, I believe, where the data contribution to nationwide as a society could come from. And data engineering is a first-class discipline, and the movement towards being more friendly, I guess, to actually get friendlier with open source, with inner source, with those principles that could be taken for granted these days by software developers, this is still a mountain to climb for data engineering disciplines. It's still quite a back office set of functions. And so what's next for us? How can we really take pragmatic, tangible steps towards delivering this vision? So this picture was also harvested from last year's SEACOM. And it aims to describe something that is not quite as neat as the mental model of the previous slide. We know that we may have those artifacts, those architecture artifacts that are well tended to. We may have a very strong enterprise architecture that maintains those artifacts in real time. But the real footprint of our data looks a bit more organic, like this. And how can we hold a good conversation, either of investment with our business stakeholders, of architectural transformation, often linked to technologies with our technology stakeholders, if we are not talking about the reality of the data flows on the ground? So instead of a lot of diagrams, what I believe we need to do next is to surface the real picture, this web with the droplets, the web of our systems and the droplets of data that you can see there. How can we visualize? How can we develop this common language between technology and business on the same basis? And and obviously just even using those words technology and business is quite an anomaly nowadays, that when we recognize that this is a partnership and our businesses are powered highly by our technology systems. But be that as it may, from an organization point of view, these are distinct units. And if those distinct units cannot visualize the same picture, it's very unsurprising that we cannot make coherent decisions. And so kind of going back to front in a way, in order to visualize not only the payload, not only the flow of data and the actual content that can power a data-driven nationwide with good MIS, with good business insights, we also need to know where the web is, where are the flows, because those two are facets of value and of asset and liability. And to build this from basic principles would take forever. So our first experimentation, and we are doing just that, architectural spikes to understand how we could deliver this visual representation. It starts with a virtual view of that web. So this virtual view has two elements. At the moment, looking at our warehouses, not our operational systems. So we're not going after hundreds of potential data sources in one step. We are doing it in a kind of think big but start small. So we are virtualizing, creating a layer of connections on top of data marts and data warehouses and data lakes. Then, as we have a look at our estate, collectively, being able to utilize modern techniques of design and implementation to implement or to test a data fabric and a data mesh. And what does that mean? It means that now not only we can see the estate of our enterprise data, enterprise grade data, and we can also understand the overlap where the same data attribute, the same transaction for the same member of the society is represented in many different places. And actually, choose one that we could then be the search engine for and get it quicker rather than having to go through the traditional ingestion through ETL into yet another big data warehouse. So we would then hopefully demonstrate not only that we can have speed of access, but we have speed of access over a controlled, visible, and reliable set of data dimensions. So those three things go hand in hand. We cannot separate them. They are part of the same spike, the same architecture spike. And actually, they are part of a broader alliance between our business leaders and our business managers all across the society, and the data lens through technology via the adoption of new engineering and architecture patterns. So we hope to learn from that, right? And we hope to learn by doing and move away from the long-running activities for selecting a best design, the best technology, the best provider, and that could take a number of months, if not years, and actually put our money where our mouth is and be comfortable with learning by doing, whether that is success or failure, and readjusting, rebalancing our efforts to achieve that level of visibility. That will create also a sense of partnership that is stronger. We are, as data and analytics function, an ally to our business strategy and our technology strategy. And we hope to bring a greater level of agility by operating well with our partners. So this is a small story I wanted to share with you about our role at Nationwide as data and analytics provider. And I only have to thank you very much for listening. And I hope you can join me at the Q&A session later. Thank you.